Hi, my name is Reese.
And my name is Taryn, and this is Talking C.A.R.
We are members of the Jason Russell Society in Massachusetts. If you haven't heard of us yet, well, you have now.
In this monthly podcast, we are going to be talking all things C.A.R. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Talking C.A.R.
If this is your first time listening to Talking C.A.R., welcome. If it's your second time, awesome, and welcome back.
In this month's episode, we are going to be talking about the founding of C.A.R.
Children of the American Revolution was founded on April 5th, 1895 by Harriet Lothrop, a member of D.A.R.
But before we get more into the founding of C.A.R., let's talk a little bit about Harriet's life.
Harriet Mulford Stone was born in New Haven, Connecticut in 1844, and she was a children's author, most known for the Five Little Peppers series under the pen name Margaret Sidney. So if you go to a library or anywhere, don't look under Lothrop because you won't find any of her books.
Look under Sidney. She met her future husband, Daniel Lothrop, through his publishing company, which she used to publish her books through. Soon after, they got married.
The family moved to Concord, Massachusetts in 1883 and had their first and only child, a daughter, Margaret Lothrop, about a year later. And when Margaret was older, she wrote a book titled The Wayside and wrote about how her parents had talked about forming a children's organization like D.A.R. And I quote, "Mother has written that she and father have often discussed the necessity for a patriotic society for young people."
In 1892, Daniel Lothrop passes away, and Harriet stops writing for a little bit, so we can only assume that she is going into serious planning on starting a society.
And in 1895, in February, at the Fourth Continental Congress of D.A.R., she spoke about her ideas for C.A.R. and ended her speech with the resolution as follows.
Resolved, that the Society of the Children of the American Revolution shall be organized and adopted by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Which is a quote from Centennial Plus One, the Centennial History of the National Society Children of the American Revolution, which you can get your own copy of from National Headquarters. And this is where we got most of our information from.
Yep, it's a very helpful in the introduction.
Yes.
And the resolution was brought to the D.A.R. Board of Management meeting on April 5th, 1895, which was approved unanimously with great applause.
The 125th anniversary is coming up on April 5th, 2020. Yep.
And Margaret, Harriet's daughter, was the first member of C.A.R., and she was approved on June 14th, 1895. And now we'll get into a few fun facts about the first 6 years.
Harriet took the position of national president for the first 6 years.
Till 1901, and then it was passed on every year after that. So the first society of C.A.R. was the Old Northbridge Society of Concord, Massachusetts, which is still a society in Massachusetts today.
Whoop whoop. Dues back then were only 50 cents per person per year.
And over the course of the 6 years that Harriet was ruling as national president, C.A.R. had spread to 33 states and territories, and 162 societies were formed.
Before they had the C.A.R. song, they had Our Flag of Liberty, which we will get into later.
Yeah. And all the societies that were part of C.A.R. were named after men and women who did patriotic service in the American Revolution.
You can see how much C.A.R. grew in those 6 years that Harriet served as national president and how much she cared for C.A.R.
Margaret also wrote in her book, The Wayside, that, and I quote, "For her, patriotism is combined with pride in the past, love of country, and understanding of its best traditions into life in the present." And that's written about Harriet.
We'll be back right after this commercial. We'll see you on the other side.
Have you heard? The National Society of the Children of the American Revolution is celebrating 125 years. I can't think of a better way to celebrate than with a membership promotion and a new national contest. Starting on July 4th, 2019, all of the new C.A.R. applications submitted and verified through February 28th, 2021 will count automatically toward your local society totals. The top 3 local societies in 2 categories, 25 members and fewer and 26 or more members, with the most new members will be announced as winners at the 2021 National Convention and receive monetary awards. Now, go out and find some new members.
And we're back. Now that you know a little bit about the Lothrop family and the founding of C.A.R., we're going to take a little bit of a turn and we're going to talk about a special place that we got to visit.
So, fortunately, we live in Massachusetts, not far from Concord.
And for all of you out-of-staters, it's not pronounced Concord, it's pronounced Concord.
So, we went to Minuteman National Park, and you may know it for the place where the shot heard round the world happened.
The Old North Bridge.
And really where the Revolutionary War started, but also in Minuteman National Park is the House of the Authors, also known as the Wayside. And this is the house that Harriet and Daniel Lothrop moved into in 1883 and where Margaret Lothrop grew up.
The house was also a home to the Alcott family and the Hawthorne family before the Lothrops had bought it.
So this was the Lothrop's summer home, and they lived in Boston for the winter season.
Because it was closer to Daniel's publishing shop. And many thanks to Mr. Pete, our tour guide, who made the point to point out as many C.A.R. things as he could around the house during our visit.
So we started our tour in a little screened-in porch and learned some basic history about the house and how it changed over the years and some pictures.
And we really started our tour in a room that held a ton of pictures that the Lothrop family had picked up around their visits.
But also in that room was a huge statue, they called them spirits, of Mr. Alcott. And it was in there because this is the room where the Alcott girls really went to school and their father taught them.
Because they were homeschooled. And next we went into the stairway, which had calling cards.
And it was really interesting to learn about those.
Yes.
And then we moved into a different room, which is where Harriet would write.
And the first thing that we saw was Harriet's spirit.
Yep.
Sitting in her
favorite wicker chair. And, gotta get a photo up there. And then we looked at her desk and we saw original sketches from her Five Little Peppers books.
And her glasses that she wore on the table.
And then we saw this beautiful piano where it had pictures of Margaret and Harriet and songs on the piano. And the one thing that caught our eye about the songs was it did say Children of the American Revolution on it.
And this song just so happened to be Our Flag of Liberty, which I told you we'd get back to. And I'm going to read a little bit from it. So, our country's flag to thee we give, our heart's devotion while we live. Symbol of all that makes us free, to thee we render loyalty. In every Chrisman waving stripe, we see devotion's prototype. With all our hearts, blood will defend our dear old flag unto the end.
And Harriet wrote this piece with another, I think, member of C.A.R. or a member of D.A.R. Yeah, member of D.A.R. Oopsie. And it was dedicated to a C.A.R. society. And, yeah. They gave this song at the opening ritual. Yeah.
We moved into the next room, which was also could be called a sunroom, with an old telephone.
This is really, it had a beautiful bay window, and it was just a really pretty room. And then we moved into the dining room, which had a bookcase full of all the books from all the authors that lived in the house. And it had signs because Harriet
Gave tours of the house because the Alcotts and the Hawthorns had lived there.
Yeah, and there was a piece of artwork by a friend of theirs, and the room was just very beautiful. And then the next thing was an old kitchen area, and it had the old Alcott fireplace and a
War Relief Service Certificate awarded to an Old North Bridge Society member who volunteered by furnishing supplies and relief to soldiers of Massachusetts during the war with Spain.
Yep. And then after that, we moved into Daniel Lothrop's study. It was a beautiful room with real furniture from his publishing office in Connecticut.
And all of the books that he had published through his company, which was a lot of books.
Yeah, it was a huge bookcase, and it was just super pretty. And then we moved up the stairs and into the sort of loft attic kind of place, and we saw a little bit creeping around the corner behind the staircase was the spirit of Nathaniel Hawthorne. He was writing at his stand-up desk and was really tall.
Yeah. Then we saw a framed resolution from the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution from the 10th Continental Congress that started the
It stated the appreciation and heartfelt thanks for her self-sacrificing devotion to the National Society Children of the American Revolution. And also around that room were tons of busts, which was really
had the
interesting.
heads of all these people.
And the ceiling was painted like nature scenes, and it was sort of like a memory of Nathaniel Hawthorne. It had when he was born, when he died, and it was just really pretty. And then we moved downstairs into the kitchen. Well,
The newer kitchen.
yeah, the kitchen was where the Alcott fireplace was, but since Harriet was giving tours of the house,
She moved it because she didn't want to disrupt the maids.
Yeah. So the kitchen was actually very new for its age. Well, not very new now, but it was very chic, I guess. And
We also saw Harriet's old cookbook, and we actually got a few recipes from it.
yeah, well, that's going to be interesting to try. And the floor, they had a replica of the floor that she originally had, and it was just really pretty. It was like a bunch of triangles. It was really cool.
The tour had started and ended in a different building, which had a lot of history about the house and
Who
had a
lived
little
in
bit
it.
about C.A.R.
And there was pictures of Margaret as a kid and the original logo of C.A.R., which I never expected.
It's very fun to
Yep.
see.
And in another part of Concord is the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, where Daniel, Harriet, and Margaret Lothrop are buried, and there's a C.A.R. plaque near all of their graves. And once again, we do recommend, if you're in Massachusetts, if you're
Stop.
near Concord,
Stop by. It's a very fun place to go visit.
yep, it's very worth the visit.
Mm-hmm.
That's our podcast for this month. You can find our podcast on Buzzsprout, Spotify, and iTunes. Be sure to tune in again next month.